If you're watching this video, you don't need incentive to be here because this is the Reserve List Top 10, the hottest selling cards in the Reserve List from March 1st to the 9th of 2024. But honestly, it's not sponsored by anyone other than my patrons and YouTube membership members. And if you love Reserve List cards, then this is the place, this is the channel for you. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Hey guys, welcome back. MTG Moxman here as your host for the top 10 hottest selling cards on the Reserve List, and this is from March 1st to the 9th of 2024. Now, of course, if you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to slam down and subscribe, and of course, turn on your notification bells, new videos every single day. And if you want to support my channel even further, go ahead and use my TCG affiliate link. It's found in the description of this video. Now, let's jump right to the number 10 card. This is Fork, and it is from Revised. Now this card is averaging $41.90, and you can see there with 54 sales, we got around $2,200 of sales action. But I want you guys to pause for a minute. I want you to take a deep breath, enjoy your coffee, look at the wonderful day and the world around you, and realize that this is 54 sales in the number 10 spot. That means every card after number 10 is actually higher than this. And not only that, I was going to do a whole honorable mention section, but did you know that a card like Time Walk had 20 sales this week? Or how about the fact multiple Moxes sold and disappeared from the market in private groups? Yeah, there's a lot of noise going on that players need to be aware of, and I'm glad we're doing this video today because this is all going to tie together. But let's stop this for a minute. Let's get to the number 9 card today. And of course, from Stronghold, Mox Diamond. This one's been a little hard for people to find, but it's on a lot of wish lists, and it's still managed to find its way onto the list with 56 sales this week. That's $38,000 of Reserve List awesomeness moving throughout the ecosystem of Magic the Gathering, MTG Finance that no one wants to even talk about anymore. And yes, the sales are racking up. This is awesome. That's all I can tell you guys. Seeing these kind of sales and the amount of movement happening in the market isn't something we've seen for a while. But knowing that cards are hard to find, knowing that players desire them and want to play with them just like we did and play kitchen table Magic, use them for Commander, use them for Legacy, Vintage, any format that you want to play, Reserve List cards are just so epic, and to see so many being bought and sold this week has got me just like wondering what's going to happen next week. Now let's go ahead and take a look at number 8, because number 8 is going to throw you guys for a loop. We're going to Antiquities. We are taking a look at Transmute Artifact. That's right, I said it, Transmute Artifact. This thing's been climbing the last little while. You guys probably noticed in the last month it's gone up over $100. 61 sales this week from the 1st to the 9th. That is $28,000, 600, well, 28,000 and change. You can see it on the screen there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Guys, this is Transmute Artifact. Guys, the idea that some of these cards are coming out of the woodwork, coming out of nowhere after things like Murat Karlov Manor, going ahead and taking a look at the Fallout, Thunder Junction, Bloomborough, whatever, Modern Horizons 3. It's all great. These are amazing things to discuss and have conversations with. But this card hasn't been on the list in 4 years. This card hasn't made it back onto my top 10 in 4 years. That's what we're talking about. Think about how long ago it was that this thing had a buyout. And remember, a buyout is going to be anything around 40, 50 copies, sometimes as low as 20 copies, depending on. But when you see a lot of sales of a particular card, you got to go hunting and find out what's going on. Now, our next card is Volroth Stronghold. And again, it's from Stronghold. This fits in perfectly. And you can see there, it is the number 7 slot. And this thing had 67 sales this week, or $6,359 of sales action. Now, a card like this should be well over $150 to $200. I don't care if somebody thinks it should or shouldn't. That is the Moxman's opinion. I'm going to stick by it. Honestly, this thing could probably go as high as $400 or $500 in the near distant future of whatever happens in the world. I don't care, guys. The card's epic. It's amazing. I've always enjoyed it. And you know what the good news is? If you bought this card about 6-7 months ago when it was like $50, congratulations. You've watched my videos, you have learned, and you paid a decent price. Actually, you paid an amazing price compared to where we see this card going. The upwards pressure on a lot of these cards from Weatherlight, from Stronghold, these little movements we're seeing, they're not imaginary. They're just people moving money where they want it to go and getting cards that they really want to get their hands on. MTG Finance is so fascinating. How somebody will tell you one thing and then something else happens and they're like, well, that's what I thought was going to happen. No. Nobody can predict week by week sales. You don't know what other people are going to do. But when you see this many like-minded people, like Wheel of Fortune in number 6 here with 70 sales, that's $13,000. This thing's gone up about $80 in the last few months. Okay, remember when this thing used to be $195 Canadian, 180 bucks Canadian for a heavily played copy I was telling people to buy, and now you can't find these things anywhere again? Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune. Makes you just want to tune in like after lunch when you're a teenager. I'm telling you guys, the amount of sales that we are witnessing just does my heart good because these are amazing cards. Other people recognize it and are diving in on it. It's amazing. Now, hopefully you own some of these cards as well, by the way. Hopefully you don't have to buy, if the price goes up, hopefully you're not paying the top dollar, but either way. Okay. Here we have Scrubland, 78 sales. That's $25,422.54 of sales action, averaging $325.93. I know I'm having a hard time taking this video really seriously, guys, and it's just because there were so many sales, so much counting, and so many mid-range cards that got 20, 30 sales that aren't going to make the list. Imagine seeing these cards and having to redo your counts over and over because other cards overtake them. It's like the good old days, and I love seeing this stuff. And the idea that I get to play with some of these things, and luckily I already own a lot of these cards, is amazing. And so far my Arabian Nights cards have not been hit, so my prices have not changed there, and I'm still working diligently to try to get that Bazaar of Baghdad for my collection. I know, crazy stuff. All right, now we're going to drop in and take a look at another revised card. We are still hanging out with Copy Artifact, and for good reason, guys. It is an amazing card. Remember when this thing was 12 bucks about 5 weeks ago? And now it has 80 sales still, $6,021 of sales action, $75.27 is going to be your average price US. And of course, if you can find it for around the $50 mark for a heavily played copy, I'd almost say go for a near mint at this point because it's only $25 of difference. But at the same time, for all these players looking for play copies, and so far, by the way, as we go through this video, everything is selling under the sun. From heavily played, moderately played, light played, and near mint. Nothing seems to be off the table this week in any of the cards we're talking about. So depending on your position and how wealthy or poor you are, you'll be buying different copies based on your means, what you can afford to get, or maybe you're sitting on the sidelines wondering what is going on. I know I was for a while. I'm enjoying looking at this stuff and talking to you guys. Crazy action. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our next card. Now, this is Liege of Hollows, Weatherlight. Obviously, this is tying into what we're seeing with Modern Horizons 3. Shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. We got 2 green, 2 generic, and it says, if Liege of Hollows is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player may pay any amount of mana and put that many squirrel tokens into play. This thing is best utilized when an opponent or opponents are tapped out. You make sure this thing comes in and dies horribly to some sacrificial thing, goes to your graveyard, but you pump out a couple hundred squirrels, take an extra turn, and just obliterate everybody with a squirrel armada. That's the general idea you use with this card, and that makes sense why it's only like a $5 card. It's actually kind of cheap to cast compared to other cards like it, but either way, an amazing card that's super cheap. I can see why some people are speculating after what we saw for Bloomburrow and, of course, what we are going to see for Modern Horizons 3. Now, our next card, of course, is going to come to us from Urza's Legacy, and we are talking Deranged Hermit, still hanging in there, and of course, still gaining in value. 126 sales this week, which is $5,155.92 of sales action, an average price of $40.92, and of course, the Echo ability, making lots of squirrels, giving all your squirrels +1/+1. He's a hermit. He lives by himself, and he's a little bit deranged because he's by himself talking to squirrels. It makes great conversation every time he meets with his family. But at the same time, we recognize that this is the number 2 card. It is not the number 1. I want you to think about that for a minute. 126 sales on a weekly update. And this is the number 2 card. That's how insane the sales action has been this week. I don't know how many people are actually going to watch this video. Views like this get to like 3,000, maybe 4,000 views at most for a reserve list video. But let's take a look at the number 1 card and let's bask in the glory of going to the dark. Because in the dark, you can find things like your local exorcist to make sure that everything's going to be okay because it can target a black creature and destroy it. 312 sales. $8,892. Look at the spike in the price on your screen. I was buying these for the dark collection that I was doing for the 20K party. I was paying $4 to $5 a copy. Now it's at $28.50. Somebody did a buyout, and it's a big buyout. This is not a singular entity. It's probably multiple people because of how many places they hit, or it's a small cadre of people because they hit everything that I could look under. Okay, crazy to see. Now we're going to wrap this up. Don't worry, just stick around. We're going to go to the wrap up because the Exorcist means a lot more than people realize. It's actually a fairly decent card too. I think people forget about that. For 2 casting costs that can blow up black creatures with all the multicolored cards nowadays, it does fit into a whole bunch of commander decks. Now, if we take a moment to break down what's been happening this week in sales. If you look at a dual land, which of course Scrubland's on the list, it makes sense that dual lands are always there. There's always a certain need and desire. The fact that even graded copies, near mints, light played, heavily played, everything under the sun was mixed in this week, it throws a little bit of a ratchet bone into the machine that kind of crunches things up a bit and doesn't make it as clear and as definitive as I would like, but it makes sense that dual lands are selling. It's kind of always a misnomer to say, oh, well, why does somebody want a collectible graded copy they're going to put up on a shelf? Yeah, maybe they do. Individual consumers don't have to justify why they're buying something. They put down hard-earned cash, the sale gets recorded, you see it, and now you know how much was spent and bought and sold in these reserve list cards. Now, some of these cards, of course, do make perfect sense with no logistics needed, no in-depth study into why the reserve list is failing or succeeding this week, because a Deranged Hermit makes perfect sense with Modern Horizons 3 coming, with Bloomburrow stepping in there, the new Squirrels, the idea that could build a cutesy deck. Liege of Hollows fits right into that conversation wheelhouse of why those cards are selling. Things like Fork, they always sell. Usually not in this high of quantity, but maybe people found a reason to buy it, whatever it may be. The interesting cards, things like the Exorcist, selling 312 copies, $8,000 to $9,000. What I find funny about that is that's like one Beta Mox. And you took a chunk of the available stock and just took it from the market. Somebody had fun with that. Somebody is laughing right now. Because if they have the money to do that, they don't care what happens to that cardboard. They just want to have it. And they're doing it because they can. They want to see the market reaction. They want to see what we're all going to do. They want to see if FOMO kicks in like we've seen in the past with Copy Artifact, which, by the way, is still selling exceptionally well. Wheel of Fortune's running out. Do you know how many stores I check in with that have wish lists with all these cards being demanded? Can you find me this? Can you get this? If you get this in, can you let me know? This is where we're at. Let's not take into account all the shipping fees, import fees around the world that set the market space for a whole bunch of people, from Card Market to Card Kingdom to TCG Player, using my affiliate link, everything, depending on where you're getting the card. People can order cards in Canada and have them shipped all the way to California if they're willing to pay for it. But those import barriers do slow people down. They do stop us from buying certain cards, which means you look locally and you hope somebody turns the card in, and that's not always going to be the case, which means the wish lists get pretty big. And stores look and say, is anyone looking for this card? Oh, we have like 9 people looking for this card. Chances are one of these 9 does need that card, and they'll buy it on the secondary market. That's where you're going to find a lot of action. But the sheer volume that you're seeing, that I've just showed you this week, tells me there's probably more going on than that. It lets me know that somewhere in this market space, not only do people think the reserve list holds value, some people might be thinking it's the only thing in Magic that is going to hold a longer term value. And before the prices fully turn around, because you know it's being mentioned on multiple creator content platforms that, hey, I saw a few more sales. I'm not really mentioning it much now, but yeah, there's a few things that look like they're coming up this way. Yes, there's been a lot more sales. Yes, they're all over the place, which is why I had so much fun counting up the totals this week. It took a really long time. It took some investigating. It took a little bit of like, hey, if that's sold, did this sell? And you start looking around and you realize and you capture as many of these sales as you can. I can't tell you how many cards in the 20s and 30s didn't make the list because the highest cards start at 40, wherein sometimes we have 10 or 15 copies of something that used to make a top 10 reserve list video about 6 months ago. The low prices, the need for cards to have value long term, to justify spending some of the amounts of money we're seeing, and the fact that, let's face it, cryptocurrency and stuff has been popping off, and people may be trading in some crypto while it's looking good right now and going into some hard assets, which a collectible is. Collectibles go up and down, don't get me wrong. They can go to zero. But if somebody says, I can trade in some imaginary stuff in my crypto, and I can walk away with an alpha time twister, or 3 unlimited time twisters, or 26 collector edition time twisters, I wonder why I would buy those. I wonder if I think those may go up over the years and allow me to capture a whole bunch more money as I diversify my investment portfolio. There's a lot going on. And let's not forget the silent but deadly. In case you didn't know what the silent but deadly is, that's where the cards don't get sold, but they disappear. They get pulled down. Moxes and stuff just disappear from a local place. You're like, oh, did that sell? No, it just got taken down, which means it was a private sale for cash. Interesting times. I will be keeping a close eye on this. I will be following through to see if this continues week over week. You can check in with the Reserve List Top 10 videos every week. I do it on Sundays. I always follow through. We get as many sales as we can out there so we can see where things are moving and what decks people find popular. Because here's the other thing. Some of these cards are not really Commander playable, but they are Vintage Legacy playable. They are kitchen table Magic cards that do see a lot of play from people just having fun. And I don't know if you've noticed, there's been a lot more people building 60 card decks. Interesting to see that Standard has people thinking a different way. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. It's very interesting. Anyway, thanks a lot for hanging out. Thanks for being here, guys. I will see you later. And of course, don't forget, I have a live stream, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I hope you guys can all come out and hang out with the Moxman. All right, guys, have a great day. I'm going that way. We'll see each other soon. And of course, a big shout out and thank you to the fantastic patrons of my channel supporting each and every day. Because of that Patreon support, we are able to put up new videos, research into topics, and keep the content flowing. So thanks again to the amazing Patreon support, my YouTube membership members, for being here and being part of this channel. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow. You made it to the end. Put a boomstick in the comments section so I know that you know that we both know that you truly made it. You're not just copying somebody else's comments. Just saying it happens. Okay, I know, who would copy a boomstick? I get it. I get it. I'm just joking around. The sales are exceedingly high. Meanwhile, the modern sales on Saturday were exceptionally low. It is tax season. We have a lot going on. We have a lot that could be the cause of these sales. I think it is a kind of a culmination of all three. Tax season means people who have refunds decide what to do with it. There's always been a Magic card they want. They go out and they buy that Magic card. They say, I've always wanted to have a Tundra, so I get myself a Tundra. I've always wanted to have an Alpha, whatever, Shivan Dragon, whatever it may be. Doesn't have to be a reserve list, just saying. Some people spend money that way. But at the same time, we all know that the rebounding effect that happens in the reserve list goes up and down all the time. If you buy solid cards, the losses are never that bad. Especially if you bought on the low end here in the last 6 months before things slowly started to uptick, which we've really noticed in the last 6 weeks. So I think there's something to be said about a cumulative effect of the value of cards, the value we want our cards to have, so we feel like we've actually invested not just into a game, but into something that could be an asset class unto itself in the later years. We're all hoping for it. We all kind of dismiss it, and there's other people who say it'll never happen. And we can each hold our own opinions on that, because I still hold the fact that I believe these cards will have long-term value. I always have, or I would have sold my collections, and I wouldn't be buying things that really, things have been replaced. Like, why am I buying a Juzam Djinn? Because it's an old Magic card I want for my collection? Sure, but it's amazing. It's funny, right, how your mind works. So, for anyone out there who's having a good time, spending money buying reserve list cards, hoping for a brighter future, but enjoying yourself along the way, it's all that matters, man. It's a short life. We got to enjoy it too, right? And that means playing some crazy Magic games, having fun with friends and family, and just enjoying it. So, hold the line. I'll see you guys tomorrow.